Feeling the earthquake, Mahapranada said to Mahadeva, "The way the earth was with its seas greatly shook as far as the ocean in 10 directions. The way the sun lost its rays and the rain of flowers has fallen. My mind is troubled. My brother has now given his body." Mahadeva said, "Consider the words of compassion he spoke, the way he keenly observed the tigress, tortured by suffering and weak, nearly eating her cubs. I too am troubled." Then, overcome by extreme grief, their eyes filling with tears, the two princes went back along the path to where the tigress was. They saw his clothes hanging on bamboo shoots, his body bones scattered about, his hair spread in every direction. Upon seeing this, they fainted and fell down upon the remains. Reviving after some time, they raised their arms and issued a wretched cry. "Alas, our beloved brother! The king and our mother, too, were most devoted to their son. Our mother will surely ask, 'Where did you leave the third one of you, whose eyes are long as lotus petals?' Alas, for the two of us in this part of the forest land, living is not as good as meeting death. Having lost Mahasapa, how will our parents care for us?" Then, lamenting in many ways, the two young princes went on their way. Their servants, running in all directions in search of the princes, saw them and asked, "Princes, what happened? What happened?" At that moment, the queen was lying in her bed. She dreamed a dream showing separation of a loved one. Her two breasts were cut off and her teeth were wrenched out. Finding 3 young frightened doves, one was snatched by a hawk. Terrified by the earthquake, the queen awoke suddenly and thought, "How did this sustainer of beings clothed in an ocean so violently shake? The sun was robbed of its rays, pointing to the sorrow of my heart. In my dream, my body was weak, my eyes quivered, my breasts were cut off. I wonder if my son's gone to the forest to play sport or well." As the queen sustained these thoughts, a maidservant entered distressed. She spoke to the queen. "Mother, the princes! Attendants, search for the princes. It is heard that your beloved son has perished." When she heard these words, with trembling heart and eyes filled with tears, the queen approached the king. "Lord, I have heard that my darling son has perished." The king, too, was distraught. With trembling heart, he said, "I have lost my beloved son." To give solace to the queen, the king said, "Good queen, do not grieve. I will immediately search for our prince." As he set off, he saw a gathering of people crowding about. Then the king saw the 2 princes approaching from afar. Upon seeing them, the king cried, "The princes are coming, but not all 3. Alas, it is agony to see oneself bereaved of a son. The joy of gaining a son for a man does not equal the pain of losing a son for another. Are those men not happy who have no sons in the world, or those who have met death with their children still living?" Overcome with grief, the queen, like a she-camel struck in the vital part, issued a most wretched cry. "If my 3 sons with their assembly of servants entered the forest clearing overgrown with blossoms, my youngest darling son has not returned. Where is the last son who is like my heart?" When the 2 princes came near, the king asked, "Where is the youngest of you?" Grief-stricken, their eyes filled with tears, their mouths dry, they said nothing. The queen asked, "Where is my youngest son? My heart is about to burst. My body is an unbearable pain. My mind is failing. Speak at once." Then the 2 sons told what had occurred. Upon hearing it, the king and queen became senseless. When they regained their sanity, they wept pitifully and went to the place. Seeing the bone without flesh, blood, or muscle, and the hair scattered about, the king and queen fell to the ground like trees blown down by the wind. The priest and minister witnessed these events, then refreshed and revived the bodies of the king and queen with salves of Malaya sandal. Upon reviving, the king arose and cried at this lamentation. Alas, beloved son, affectionate and jovial, why have you gone so quickly to death's domain? Why has death not come to me instead? Never have I felt a great suffering greater than this. With bedraggled hair beating her chest, the queen too wailed pitifully. She withered on the ground as does a fish thrown onto dry land, a female buffalo deprived of her young, a she-camel whose offspring has perished. Alas, who has crushed and scattered on the ground my darling son, this lotus most loving? Which enemy of mine on this earth today has slain my son of charming eye and moon-like face? Alas, when seeing her best of son slain upon the ground, why does this body not collapse? This heart of mine is clearly made of iron. It does not crack in the face of tragic pain. Today, in my dream, my breasts were cut with the sword, my teeth were wrenched from my mouth, and today my darling son is suddenly no more, just as one of the 3 doves I held was snatched by a hawk. Today, surrounded by 3 sons, death has seized one. Alas, the fruit of my evil dream has come to pass. Then the king and the queen lamented in many ways. Surrounded by a large crowd, they bared themselves of ordnance and paid homage to the remains of their son, and laid his remains in this place. Ananda, if you think the young prince called Mahasapa at that moment was another, do not see it like that. Why? At that time, at that moment, I was a young prince called Mahasapa, Ananda. Even before I was wholly free of ignorance, hatred, and desire, I saved beings from the suffering of the hells. Now that I am free of all weakness and arrived at enlightenment's perfection, how much more would I wish to free all beings? In this way, for the sake of just one being, I have happily remained in the hell realms for eons. I have freed beings completely from the cycle of birth. With the most excellent of hearts, I have helped all beings and performed numerous different daunting tasks.